Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dan Holme. In today's episode, it is over. The Capitals season and their plans for the postseason are over. This final game against Columbus is just kind of a formality, but there is some pretty big significance. Is this the last time that we see Alex Ovechkin play for the Capitals in the NHL? The last time ever. And how apropos is it really that his first game ever was against those same Columbus Blue Jackets, a game that he scored his first 2 goals? We'll talk about that and ultimately why I am more convinced now than ever that Alex Ovechkin is going to retire. Let's get into it here. Talking about the Capitals didn't collapse. They weren't good enough when it mattered. Let's really kind of just sit here and think about it for a second, because this one is complicated, right? This isn't a burn it down team. It's not a disaster. You know, it's not like they bottomed out, tanked, lost the room, none of that. And yet, they're watching the playoffs from home. And that's what makes it frustrating because, you know, when you look at this team on paper, and I mean, really drill down, plus 18 goal differential, top 10 in regulation wins, and competitive basically all year. Now, and again, I've said this often, if they were playing in the Pacific right now, well, you know where they'd be, at the top, right? Or near the top. That profile screams playoff team, but the standings don't care about should be. They care about what you actually did. And the Caps did was leave points on the table over and over and over again. If they had actually converted on those power play opportunities that they squandered, if they were able to win the games in overtime, if they were able to win the games in the shootout, we very well might be talking about something else. But I'm not the kind of guy that likes to live in the woulda, shoulda, coulda. I heard about some fans going, well, it's not fair. Carolina didn't play their starters. Really? Is that what we're blaming right now? Not the Capitals that didn't make good on a lot of their opportunities. We're blaming Carolina for not playing their starters versus the Flyers. I don't want to do that. But you take a look at the Flyers, they sneak in with a shootout win over the Hurricanes. And yeah, I know Hurricanes rested guys. That is a talking point. I've heard plenty of it, but I'm going to push back on it a little bit because if you're relying on another team's lineup decision in game number 81, then I think you missed the point. This is where the season was lost. That random February skid where they could not score. Those OT losses that piled up games where they outplayed teams and still lost. That is the difference. And you take a look at it, that inability to score when it mattered, the inability to close games, that inability to play that elusive 60-minute game. And that's where it hits you. That's not just unlucky. That's a team that did not execute in the margins. And I'll say it. This might be more frustrating than being bad because when you're bad, you know it. When you're this team, you keep thinking they'll figure it out. And they never fully did. All right, so coming up here after the break, this is why they missed. And it's not what you think. I'll discuss straight ahead. If you've got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why Cotton Candy 5-Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. This is the classic cotton candy taste you remember, but with a tasty caffeine boost and 0 sugar. It's a quick, easy way to keep satisfying that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. I've always loved cotton candy, but I can't be eating sweets all day. This is a perfect alternative. The flavor really does bring back that throwback fruity vanilla vibe, and it's surprisingly smooth. I like how convenient it is too. It is just a small portable shot I can grab whenever I need a little pick-me-up. Bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5-Hour Energy Shots, available now at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and that one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, welcome back into this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the big takeaway in segment 2 here is the Capitals didn't miss the playoffs because they were bad per se. They missed because they were average at the wrong things, because this is where it gets a little uncomfortable, Caps fans. The easy take is, they just don't have enough talent. And I don't buy that. This is by and large pretty much the same team as it was last year. You could point to Carlson and Dowd, but they were traded after the deadline or at the deadline. This team had enough talent to make the playoffs. They just didn't have enough identity. Like, what were they? Not a high-flying offensive team. Not a shutdown defensive team. Not a dominant special teams unit. They lived in the mushy middle. And in the middle of the Eastern Conference, that is quicksand, because teams like the Pens and the Flyers, they had something to lean on, and two teams that were not positioned or projected to do great things. And look at where they're at. For Pittsburgh, it's still star power and clutch scoring. For Philly, it's structure, goaltending, and timely offense. But for the Capitals, well, it depended on the night. And that's where I think, the season flipped. Because let's talk about game execution, because this is where the playoff teams separate. How many times did we see tie game in the third, Caps don't push? Overtime, Caps don't push. Shootout, Caps come up short. Never found that shootout specialist. They're really missing guys like Oshie and Kuznetsov right now in those roles. But those are standing points, and that, my friends, is the difference between playing the Penguins and, watching them on television. That's not normal. That's a team misfiring situationally. And I'll go even a step further. I think they relied too much on playing safe. Spencer Carberry, credit where credit is due. He brought structure, but sometimes structure can make you passive. And this team needed more killers, right? That killer mentality. More moments where someone just says, nope, we're winning the game. You got flashes. Ovechkin, Wilson, I remember Dowd at times, but not enough from the rest. And in today's National Hockey League, depth doesn't just support, it decides games. And the Caps' depth, it was fine, just not decisive. All right, so coming up here after the break, the marquee event, Ovi, the final. And what comes next? Straight ahead, right here. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help you cancel the ones you don't need with just a few steps. I found 2 Netflix subscriptions and it helped me cancel them so easily. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your saving. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goal faster. Join rocketmoney.com/locked on. That is rocketmoney.com/locked on. All right, welcome into the final segment of Locked On Capitals, the afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the biggest takeaway is this. To the fans that keep holding on that maybe Alex Ovechkin is going to sign a 1-year contract and maybe try to run it back. What did Alex Ovechkin try to do all season? The farewell tour, the goodbye at Madison Square Garden, the handshakes, the accolades, all of those things. He tried to avoid those at all costs. If he comes back for one more season, well, then everybody is going to know it's the final season. And the thing that he tried to avoid all of this season is what is going to greet him at each and every stop. Every game, there is going to be a highlight package of every time that Alex Ovechkin played the Flames or the Canucks or the Penguins or whoever the case is. If you need proof, if you really need proof positive, I think that should be it. But the takeaway here in segment 2, this might be the quiet ending of the greatest era in Capitals history, because this one, man, all of a sudden, this last game against the Jackets feels bigger than it should, because it might be the last time that 8 is in a jersey for the Capitals. And the wild part, we don't even know 100%. No send-off, no farewell tour, no last dance. But I happen to think that if he wraps it up, we'll find a way to get down in D.C., right? Just a regular season game after elimination. This feels, it feels weird, but also perfect for Ovi. He said he'll wait until the summer to decide his future, and that tells you, well, everything. This isn't about ceremony. It's all about whether he still wants it. And here's where I land. I still think he is going to retire. It's not the ending that the fans imagined, but it doesn't erase anything. But let's be real, right? Stanley Cup champion, one of the greatest goal scorers ever, the face of the franchise for 2 decades. What? That legacy is locked. It can never be lost. But what is changing is the team around that legacy, because this version of the Caps, it's ending not dramatically, not explosively, just gradually. And you can see it, younger players getting looks, veterans aging out, front office collecting picks. That Ducks pick, wow, right? This is a transition, and those are always messy. But I'll say this, I don't think the Caps are going into the dark age. I think they're going into an identity reset, the young kids. This might be overdue, but hanging on to the past too long, that's how teams fall apart. The Caps, they're still walking the line between honoring greatness and preparing for what's next. And tonight, whether it's just game 82 or something else, you watch it differently, because if that's the last time Ovi steps on the ice in a Caps jersey, that's not just the end of the season, that is the end of a chapter in Capitals history. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Let's get up for Ovi tonight. Let's go, Caps. Let's go, Ovechkin. Let's have Ovi go out in style. I'll talk to you guys again next time.